any
you were
musicians. I'm still busy buzzing.
So now let's try and find the moment in your life when you said, "Hey, maybe I could put on my own concert somewhere." To try to remember. I'm sure you probably remember the first time you did that, but
Okay.
also tell me how that idea came to be before it actually happened.
Well, I remember that I was serving. I was in California, Riverside, California, at the. I'm trying to think of the camp. It'll come to me. It was in the Italian wine something or other. It was a tremendous farm or place where a winery where grapes were harvested and so forth. And the base I was there, I was stationed there. We used to go into Los Angeles. We were about over 100 miles away, and we'd be going into Los Angeles, on leave, to have a good time and do things. So I went down to the USO, United Service Organizations, which existed to entertain the troops in World War II. And so I found my way to the USO, which with soldiers and sailors and Marines, they were welcomed and they would meet young ladies.
Sorry, you're still in the Army now?
Oh, I'm in the Army. I was at the base, which I'll recall somehow. And what happened? I remember I heard a very fine singer. She became very famous in the movies, Marie McDonald, and something got in my head about putting on shows with her and other people there, and they agreed, and I got involved. So this was one of the first times, maybe not the first, that I was interested somehow in presentation, and that was sometime in about 1943 when I was then in California.
So you're saying you actually did go through with this idea?
Yeah. I got involved with presenting programs.
Was this something that, since you did it for the Army, you did or did not get paid for doing it, or got a small amount?
No, I didn't get paid extra. I'm trying to remember something else I was involved with at a place where a base that I named the band, and I was rewarded with a a carton of cigarettes, which I didn't smoke then or now, and I gave it away to somebody. I called the group the Jet Bombers or something. So that was my reward. I don't recall exactly, but it was in the Army at that time, and I sort of was involved somehow in music. Very slightly. I don't remember exactly how.
All right, I have a kind of odd question. If you remember that first thing you put on, do you remember having to deal with any sort of advertisements or ushers or any logistical things?
No. This is all internal. It was done then. Then I have to tell you.
So you had a built-in audience.
No. I was in California. Eventually, I went on furlough to visit my mother. My father had died already. And after I left New York, I went to Greensboro, North Carolina, and then to Newport News, which was a port where the ships, troop ships, left for service. And it was an interesting trip. It took me halfway around the world. Eventually, I went all around the world. Went through Panama Canal, and then across the ocean there, Pacific, and then we went through the Straits of Cook, New Zealand, past Tasmania, and over to Perth, Australia. Went shore leave for a couple of days. Along the way, on the troop ship, I got involved with putting on shows. I met this guy from Brooklyn, Larry Douglas, and I put him on, and there were some other acts I got involved with, just to
What
present them.
What did he do? Sing or play? Or?
No, he was a comedian.
Uh-huh.
Actually, when we came back from the war, I met him. I think he was doing something at Radio City. I don't believe he ever became very famous. But anyway, I do remember being involved with presenting programs on the troop ship.
And those were basically comedians, singers, bands.
Any entertainment that we had among the troops.
Great.
Okay. Now, one further thing. I arrive in India. I get sick. I had 104 fever. They don't fever undetermined origin, and I was there a couple of months, and I then get shipped to China. Come to China. I'm with this fighter control unit, and the enemy, the Japanese, but they were very far away from where my base was. We were over the hump, which is the Himalayas, and our base was there in Kunming, China. And my work basically was to be a radio operator with this fighter control unit. We didn't see any action. Only action I saw was when my plane went over the hump, over the Everest, that the Japanese dropped some bombs, and that's it. And we never saw any other Japanese troops or anything. Meanwhile, Kunming was a small city then, and at one point, a group of people, I was among a group of people who were interested in doing some shows, putting on shows. So I volunteered to join them, and the first show we wanted to do was a musical, which had just been put on Broadway, which was Oklahoma. Now, for some reason, I got to be the assistant director at the age of 21. I forget what age. No, I was younger. Well, maybe 20, 21. I don't remember. Got into the Army at 18. So this is about 1944, I believe, or 43. I'm not sure. And Oklahoma, we put it on. And we picked up a marvelous cast of musicians, and it was a big hit. We played for the Chinese War Relief. We had a big event. The mayor of Kunming gave all of us in the cast and the people, associated with the production, a special dinner with drinks and God knows what. It was fantastic. And we were working in the 14th Fighter Control. No, it was 14th Air Force, which was pretty famous with General Fighting Tigers, it was called, with General Chenault. And I have a picture, by the way, in my possession of being honored with General Chenault. And I'm in the picture with the cast of Oklahoma. So, anyway. So then we went on to do a play called Room Service.
Was that the
It was a famous show. In fact, I met his widow a number of years ago. She lived down in Greenwich Village, and Charlton Street, I believe. I'm not sure. And Room Service was a famous one-act play. We'll look it up. You'll see. I had a small part.
By who?
I used to know the name.
It wasn't Moss Hart or anyone.
No. It was a guy, a playwright who was famous or semi-famous, but his name.
But it's not the same one that the Marx Brothers made.
No.
Okay.
I don't think so, unless they did something special that I didn't know about. But Room Service was a play that was in the repertoire, and I had a small part as an actor. Then something else happened. In 1945, the war was drawing to a close, and Germany was being knocked out. Roosevelt had died in April of that year, and we were still in service there, and we knew it was coming to a close. At one point, they were preparing to send a group to Shanghai. I almost got involved with this somehow, because there was one rabbi, his name was Fink, I don't remember his first name, from San Francisco. He was a Reformed rabbi. And the government, for some reason, decided, the chaplains unit, to send another rabbi there, a conservative rabbi. I believe his name was Goldberg. And they needed a chaplain's assistant. So they looked up my records for some reason. I looked through and they saw I went to Flatbush Yeshiva, and so they asked me if I would be chaplain's assistant, since they didn't need me so badly to be doing whatever I was doing with the fighter control unit. And I said, sure. So I became the chaplain's assistant, and I worked with the rabbi, and I conducted services wherever they were. See, that was something since I had learned, about the what do you call the services and how to conduct them. I did that, and then I travel around China, other cities, Chongqing and everything, during the holidays, and had to learn another version of putting on the High Holy Day services, and well, it was quite an experience, and I ran across many people that I got to know, and even later on when I got back to the States. So that was a nice, what do you call, divertisement from my other duties which I conducted. Now, I was all ready to go with Rabbi Goldberg to Shanghai because they were refugees, Jewish refugees, who were incarcerated by the Japanese. They had come through from China, and they were like not a concentration camp, but they were put they were put into an area that the Japanese controlled, and they were sort of not under arrest. They were not exactly free to do anything except to be there and to accept whatever food or services they could get. So when the war came to a close, with the Japanese, they asked Rabbi Goldberg to go to Shanghai, and I had to go with him. My mother, who had been a widow, had asked to get me home sooner because I'd been away 3 years, and so they gave me a special order to go back to the States, and I never got the chance to go to Shanghai, which I wanted to go to badly then. A very exciting, interesting city. It still is to this day one of the most exciting places in the world, building very quickly and so forth. So I didn't go to Shanghai, but I came home, went around the world, the second part, so I went around the world completely. And then I edited a newspaper on the boat coming back, and remember going right through, stopped at Ceylon, which is Sri Lanka, and then we stopped at the Port Said in Egypt, then we went through Gibraltar, came saw the Statue of Liberty, and finally came home.
Okay, so, I really kind of envy your generation because I just went right to college. I was still a naive person in high school, and you had already lived a complete, extraordinary lifetime of stuff before you even started your freshman year. So but that's the way it goes, and we had to go to war at that time, so that's the way it turned out. But I still envy you guys. All right, so we now have you graduating from NYU, and then you have your was it 6 weeks or 6 months of law school before you had enough? Okay, so that was. I
graduated from NYU in 1949. I did a GI Bill of Rights, which was the most important affirmative action ever done for students in the United States. Okay, I got out. I did my 4 years and 3 years. I received a summa cum laude degree. Okay, and then I had a degree in political science, which wasn't a science. It isn't a science, and English literature. What to do? I went to law school for a year. I didn't care for it, so I withdrew.
All right, so between